Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to do a DIY Dollar Tree French Country Farmhouse Buffalo Check pumpkin. That's a lot of words, isn't it? We're going to use the foam pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to put a base coat of spray paint down on it, but that's an option. This is 97 cents at Walmart. We're going to use the white chalk paint that we made. I'll link that video in the description box down below. It uses apple barrel paint. This big bottle of apple barrel paint is $2.50 at Walmart. And I'm going to make the gray with this Crayola project paint that I got at the Dollar Tree. But you can use any black. And then as an option, we're going to do use a little bit of rope for tendrils, as well as a little bit of burlap to make a leaf, as well as cover the stem of the pumpkin. And we're going to use our glue gun and glue sticks, as well as our scissor. Okay, you also need a paintbrush, which I don't have a photograph of, so that's it. All right, first thing I told you I'm going to do is I remove the stem that came with the pumpkin, and this is super fast, and I just stuck it on a twig branch. I have a pile of them back there, and I lightly coated it 2 times with some of the acrylic 97-cent spray paint. If you use oil-based paint, it could deteriorate the pumpkin, basically dissolve the styrofoam, so be careful if you do that. And this is just a quick way to use less of the chalk paint. This chalk paint is super cheap. We made it super inexpensive with baking soda, but if you use chalk paint, it can be more money than the 97-cent spray paint. Okay, so what I've done is I've coated half the pumpkin just to one side of the seam, and then let it dry for a few minutes on its non-painted side, and then about a half an hour later I went back and painted the other side. So you want to get a nice white base coat down. Now I'm taking a Sharpie, and I end up just using a pencil in a minute, but you'll see I did that just for your purposes. You don't have to use a Sharpie. I'm doing this just to divide the pumpkin into 12 sections. The reason we picked 12 sections is there's math involved, and I will tell you how I came up with the math in case you decide to do this on a different project. Because there are 3 colors, black, white, and gray, and because we need an even number of them, you need to have something that's divisible by 3 as well as 2. So I came up with 12. So it would be like 6, 12, 18, like that. All right, so we came up with 12 sections, which is basically cut it in quarters, or not cut it, but mark it in quarters. And then I've taken each section and I've marked them in 3s, and I'm just eyeballing it because this is not a perfect flat piece of wood or anything. It's not necessarily important to do that. And then I went with the horizontal stripes, and the reason how I picked that is I looked at the front of the pumpkin. I decided where I wanted my first square, or where I wanted my first square, and I just went around with that line, and then I repeated that line with the same number of spaces. And I just didn't make it perfect because there's a couple of reasons. A, this is a pumpkin, so no matter how perfect you paint it, it's still going to look imperfect. And plus, I wanted to go for that farmhouse country look, and it sort of is that sort of handmade looking. Plus, if this is to simulate fabric, the weave of a fabric is very irregular at times, especially something as basic and simple as this buffalo check. All right. Now, of course, you guys know I did the black and white, right? I've had this in my house forever. But it was nice to be able to see that it's coming into popularity now. All right, so what I did then is I made my gray paint. And I actually, if you see here, the paint kind of exploded. I ended up putting a little bit too much black in it. And it became much darker of a gray than I wanted. But that's a matter of personal preference. So, of course, I added white, forgetting everything that I ever learned in school. Never add lights to dark, always add dark to light. But it still ended up being a little too dark for me. I just did a test sample here so that you can see. I always like to leave in my little imperfections so I could show you guys how I correct them. So then what I did was I took the it was practically empty bottle of white apple barrel paint from Walmart, and I added a little bit of that gray to it and extra water and really shook it up really well, and I was able to get this nice liquid gray. And I'm just using Dollar Tree brushes, but I just wanted to show you how I did it. I basically go around the outline of the section, use the tip of your brush on the line, and then just fill it in as you go along. And the pattern, I didn't tell you that I had marked it there with the pencil, but the pattern is you basically want to make a gray and white checkerboard. Once you're done with your gray and white checkerboard, then you want to pick out the rows that need to be black and the rows that need to stay white. It's really how much you make, but I mean how you make buffalo check. The buffalo check, like I said, is a gray and white. Oh my goodness, why am I having a checkerboard? And then what you want to do is one whole row or column, depending which direction you go in, will be all the other, every other. I'm going to just do this over again. You guys never get to hear me flub on a voiceover, do you? Okay. Basically, you want to make a gray and white checkerboard. And then you're going to go either with the row or the column, and you're going to create every other one from gray will be black. And then the next row, every other one of the gray will be white, and so on and so forth. Buffalo check is created with the strings, the way it's woven, and the gray is basically where the white rows meet the black rows, and it makes gray. Okay? So you could decide if you want to go in rows or columns, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. But I picked black to be the dominant color. I mean, I guess it's about 50-50, but with the way that the middle row that I said I squared off at first, I wanted that to be black. All right? Because I'm using this pumpkin for another project, which you guys will see tomorrow, I had in mind that I wanted it to be like that. But if you guys decide how you want it. Now, I was doing this on a pumpkin, but I wanted to show you the technique in case you wanted to buffalo check anything. You could do mason jars. You can do those cute little signs from Walmart. You can, from the Dollar Tree. You can always repaint those in a buffalo check. There's just endless. As long as you know how to create the pattern, then it's easy enough. And what I did was then I marked it off so that you guys could see. So I'm doing this in rows. So what I'm saying is if you're a Microsoft Word kind of a person, the rows go from left to right and the columns go from top to bottom. So I wanted the rows to be the color. So I have a row of black, I have a row of white, black and gray, white and gray, black and gray, white and gray, black and gray, like that. But if you look on the diagonal from starting at any one point of black, it will be diagonally will be white, and then diagonally will be black, and diagonal will be white. So if you see that, helps with the pattern a little bit, if that helps at all. Let's see. Oh yes, and going down is the same way. So if a row will be gray and white, will be white and gray, will be black and gray, black and black. Like a whole row would be the same colors, is what I'm saying. It's only on the diagonal where it switches from black to white to black to white. Okay? That's what I'm trying to say. So now I'm showing you here how I do the black squares. I'm using a finer paintbrush to paint around the edges, and then I'm filling it in with a thicker paintbrush. And like I said, this is just that poster craft paint from the Dollar Tree, from Crayola. This is not waterproof, so if you want to put it outside, you want to make sure you spray it. Mine is just going to sit on my mantle, and I'm not really worried about it getting wet. And I'm going to show you two different stem techniques. I mean, not techniques, but looks. And the first one, actually, I lost the footage. Or actually, I think I wasn't recording, and I didn't realize it. But I basically took a black and white Halloween ribbon that they had at the Dollar Tree, which is sort of like the top half of the row is white and the bottom half is black, or vice versa if you turn it around. And it's a wire edged ribbon. And I just took a roll of it. I just rolled it and glued it to make a black and white stem. If you were going for more of a Halloween look, I am going to go for, I'm going to show that to you, but I don't show you the technique of how I did it. But then I'm going to show you how I like the farmhouse look. And I'm going to put a burlap stem on here, as well as a burlap leaf. Okay? So if you see, I did the first from the top center down, and then I let it sit for a little bit so it could dry because I didn't want to mess up the paint. Then I was able to put a stick on it, in it, and paint the bottom. And here's how it looks with that piece of rolled up ribbon as its stem. And you can see it's not a perfect paint job, but it's not meant to be a perfect paint job. So I want you guys to feel confident that if you paint imperfectly, you'll still have a very lovely pumpkin. Okay? So here's how it looks like with the black and white stem. And then I'm going to show you how we created the other stem, very similar to the two that we did yesterday. If you want, I can link those videos in the description box down below. But what we did was we took 2 pipe cleaners and folded them in half or quarter, depending on how long you want your stem, and we wrapped it around. I took some burlap ribbon, and I cut the burlap ribbon on a diagonal, and I started rolling it where it was thinnest, and then covered it to the very end, so it would be a little fatter on the bottom. All right, now I cut the bottom off at a diagonal so it sits in the pumpkin more naturally. And then for this one, I decided to take a tiny piece of burlap and stick it on the end, the tip basically, to cover the little hole and opening. And then I trimmed it around once the glue was cooled off. And then I just put a big glob of glue and put it right there. And what I like about doing these stems around pipe cleaners is that they're adjustable. So if you want your stem to bend or twirl more, or however you want to manipulate it, you can. It makes it much easier. Just hold it till it dries. Okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a leaf. And if you watched the video yesterday, I showed you how we painted a couple of leaves from the Dollar Tree. But what we're going to do today on this one is I'm going to take a piece of burlap ribbon, or burlap sheet actually. It's actually a remnant left over of the sheet burlap that we got at the Dollar Tree. And I traced the leaf from this chalkboard that they sell at the Dollar Tree. You don't have to do this. You could freehand it. You can just do the maple leaves. It's fine. But I just wanted to show you another option in case you can't get your hands on maple leaves that you like. You can also print one from the internet to get a pattern. But I just traced this leaf onto a scrap of burlap. And to keep the burlap from, and I'm doing it in marker just to show you guys on camera, okay? You don't have to do it in such a big fat marker. If you could use chalk pen or something, would be easier, or just a regular pen, you can see. Now while this is on my protective cutting mat, I am going to take some hot glue, and I'm going to trace just inside that line with hot glue. And the reason we're doing this before we cut it is so that it doesn't fray on us. Okay, we've done this technique before with banners and such, but this is just one way of doing a leaf if you can't find the leaves that you want. All right, and once it's cooled off, which actually we didn't watch glue dry, but once it's cooled off, go ahead and cut around the lines. I was trying to cut just on the inside of the lines right against the edge of the glue. And there you have a really cute little pumpkin leaf. You could take a pen and do some vining if you wanted to, or glue on some wire or something if you wanted to. But I just liked it just like this, plain and simple. And once I have it all trimmed up, we're just going to put a glob of hot glue. Now, when I was placing the leaves, I knew that I was going to be using this for another project. So I wanted to make sure that both halves of the pumpkin were representing something else. So I made sure I put my leaf right on where the seam is between the two sides of the pumpkin. So this way, if I turn it over, you can see both sides have a piece of leaf. All right. And I told you in the beginning that we were going to use a little bit of nautical rope. Well, this is just a scrap piece of nautical rope, and this is just another way to do a tendril. If you watched the video yesterday, we did the tendril that I taught you guys last year. But this is just a piece of rope that I basically untwisted a section, and it naturally stays twisted like this. So I just took off 2 little pieces. If you can see that the rope is made up of a bunch of pieces of jute just twisted around itself. So I took 2 pieces, and now I'm separating them. And I'm just going to glue one on each side. I'm tying a little knot on it so the glue has something nice and heavy to grab onto. And then I'm repeating the same on the other side. And you can make one a little shorter if you want to. That's fine. It'll be a nice look that way as well. And that's it. So go back and touch up any paint spots that you might have messed up, or if you want your white to be whiter, you can go back over it with an additional coat of paint. But I just really like this pumpkin the way it is. And that's it. So I hope you really enjoyed this tutorial. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments down below. Oops, there's a little sneak peek at the preview for tomorrow. If you haven't yet, click subscribe. When you do, a little bell will pop up. When you ring that bell, YouTube will let you know whenever I upload a new video. And as always, take care. God bless. See you next time. Bye.